All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I guess it is still good morning on the West Coast, and I don't know what time it is in Australia here, but we've got a great call lined up. Very, very popular on this, as you might have seen on some of the email promotion. A ton of people that are registered. We've got a couple hundred MSPs that are on this call here today that are registered for this. Under the name of Hack Me If You Can, Common Security Mistakes MSPs can't afford to make. And you guys are in for a treat on this. Just a ton of great information to be able to see what's going on out there. I've got Michael Reeves is on. Michael's a 25-year plus veteran in the IT industry, a lot of that in the security side of things. A lot of different companies, including Symantec and Broadcom and many others. He's now with BitDefender. But before we get started on that, why don't we do this in the chat? If you can post up in the chat where you're dialed in from here today, where you're watching via Zoom here. I just want to see of who is on today. I'm seeing Portland, Houston, Gilbert, Arizona. Mike, that's right near you.
Oh my gosh, that's right up the street.
Evansville, South Carolina, Alberta, Decatur, Tennessee, over here by me, New York City area, Kentucky. Someone down at the beach in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. I love it there. So hopefully not watching this, Jeff, on vacation there. Maybe you live down there. We'll do this. So you guys have tested out the chat there. You've got that. Mike and I talked about this. If you do have questions as you're going through, make sure you post them to the questions of the Q&A section on there. It'll help me to be able to keep it organized. We will make sure you can wear Mike out with any questions that you have here as he's going through. But really with that, and Jeff was saying he's fortunate enough to live there at the beach, and so we can all be jealous of that. But we've got and I'm seeing Gene having a question already here. Gene, I'll catch that, but you want to post it in the Q&A. One thing that I do want to make sure that you guys are aware of on this before we get started, we've got our Next Gen MSP tour. It is hosted by MSP Success Magazine. I'll post a link up in the chat, nextgenmsptour.com. You're going to want to take a look at that. This is a free event. We've got 5 more cities, including actually in the Phoenix area there that we're going to be later this year. When it is cooler everywhere else, we'll be in Phoenix for an event. Great event for MSPs, nextgenmsptour.com. We just added a half-day workshop on building out your cybersecurity war chest of tools and everything that you have for your team there with Bruce McCauley is going to be doing that half-day workshop. And so go check that out. MSP Success is tour, which is the Next Gen MSP tour. And again, I'll post that up in the chat. But with that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you here for the next 60 minutes. And we'll see if we can hack you if we can.
That's great. All right, let me go ahead and share my presentation here. Give me 1 second. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, I'll get on that.
Awesome. Well, great. Thanks, everyone. I know your time's valuable, so I want to, thank you for attending today's webinar. And yeah, I thought the title was pretty creative. And I think it gets to the message that we're going to be talking about today. Whether or not you use BitDefender, I think you're going to get some value on how you can protect your business as well as your customers' businesses against intrusion in whatever form that may take. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself so that you know how I kind of approach this particular part of the industry. So I've been in security since the mid-90s. I started out actually in the Fortune 50. So I was associated with a couple of very, very large Fortune 50 accounts, one of them being American Express. The other one was DHL when they were here in the United States. FedEx and UPS were too strong of competitors, so they left the US market. from an IT perspective. And then my third account that I was associated with back in the day was Honeywell. And when you think about securing operations, whether you're a very large account like one of those that I described, or you're a small, medium business, the great thing about security is the principles are the same. The way that you implement security might be a little bit different, but you still have to do the basics that whether you're a large company or you're a small company, or whether you're a managed service provider or internal IT, the process to secure your customers' environments are the same. So we're going to be talking about those principles, and then I'm going to show you how BitDefender implements those principles using our particular product. And feel free to ask any questions. I love questions. It really lets me know what's on your mind. And also it helps me to communicate if I'm unclear in a particular area. I live in Arizona, so the person from Gilbert, Arizona, welcome. And I'm based in Chandler, moved out here from Southern California back in the early 2000s, and just love Arizona. I love the outdoors, and that's my happy place. So let's go ahead and dive in. And in a session that we've entitled Hack Me If You Can, and looking at some security mistakes that some companies make. As we kind of get started, one of the things that I noticed as I travel around the world is, especially when it comes to BitDefender, a lot of people don't understand what we do. We're not a sales and marketing company. We are an engineering firm. Over half of our employees are actually engineers by trade. So we have very small sales and marketing force. We rely on partners. So 100% of our business runs through the channel. But when you think about BitDefender, we are an AI company, and we started that way before the industry went to AI machine learning. So back before next gen was even coined a marketing term, about 10 years ago, BitDefender was already in that business, in production. We just don't get to name things because we're an engineering company. So we have 3 locations globally. We've got our US-based headquarters in the Silicon Valley. We've got SOC operations that I'll talk to you about, based in San Antonio, Texas, which is where kind of US Cyber Command is located. So we get a lot of our SOC operational people from the US military and government installations that are really based in San Antonio, Texas. And then our corporate headquarters is in Bucharest, Romania, where a lot of these engineers live as well. So that's kind of BitDefender at the high level. And a couple of interesting facts that you may not know about BitDefender: about 30, almost 40% of the security industry is actually using our technology. So a lot of the common names that you may think about from a security perspective actually OEM our products. So we have a little north of 600 million endpoints deployed globally. And from those endpoints, we get about 30 billion daily threat queries in our operational model. And of those, about 400 every minute are actually malicious in nature, whether it's coming from criminal organizations worldwide, nation states are attacking other nation states, or maybe private businesses, or just malicious actors out there. About 400 every minute are being processed by our platform and responded to. The next number that I just love is that BitDefender to date has saved companies. Now, these are non-BitDefender customers, okay? So this is just basic security goodness. We saved them about $1.6 billion to date because BitDefender is an engineering firm, we reverse engineer ransomware, and then we publish those decryptors on our website. So if you know any business that's been hit by ransomware, one of the first things that you should tell your customer, partner, whatever, or you yourself, go to the BitDefender website, search ransomware decryptors, and you'll find our decryptors available free of charge. And to date, companies have saved north of $1 billion by just using our decryptors and decrypting their own environments, so they don't have to pay ransom. They don't have to work with cyber insurance companies, things like that. It's just a pain. And that's great. I was at a conference last year, in fact, where a couple of gentlemen approached me. They were very concerned. I had just talked about this on stage. They came up, they wanted to know very specifically about these ransomware decryptors, and the concerned look on their face. I asked them what's happening. They said, our business has been hit and we need one of these. Hopefully you have one. So I stopped what I'm doing. We logged into the BitDefender website, and great story. We had the ransomware decryptor for their particular version of ransomware that hit their company. And they were the two happiest guys the rest of the week. It was great. Every time we would see each other, they would say, yeah, awesome. So great story there. We do a lot of reverse engineering of ransomware. We've got about 476 issued patents to date. We've got a couple hundred in the pipeline. And the reason why is because we have so many engineers that work for our company. About 285 of them are actually threat hunters that are not product related, not sales related, not support related, but they are basically individuals that are really highly skilled in tracking criminal organizations, nation states, and helping different law enforcement agencies and nation states defend themselves and go after criminal organizations worldwide. And some of these criminal investigations have resulted in arrests and things like that you see about in the news. What they don't tell you is that BitDefender's been involved in those investigations and have helped law enforcement to bring those folks to justice. So just another great piece of our organization. And then we've got about 400 engineers that are focused on AI, machine learning, cloud-based technologies. And so we're really an AI machine learning threat hunting organization that also sells a product. So let's dive into some of the challenges with defending your customer's environment against attack. And these principles are the same, and these problems are the same, whether or not you're a Fortune 50 account or you're a small and medium business. And basically, when you talk about asset-based security, so we're not talking the network, we're talking about anywhere your data lives, there are three main problems with trying to secure that data. The first area is what I call prevention. And this means, this is referring to, you need some automated security controls that are implemented in your customer's environment that are able to detect and then respond to those incidents in an automated way. And the challenge in this particular area of your security architecture is when you have poor prevention. In other words, you have either not enough security controls that are in place, or those security controls don't have good response mechanisms. And so it's not able to deal with enough malicious events in an automated way. And what this does when you have a challenge in this area is it drives a lot of high incidents into your people resources that have to respond to those incidents. So you become overwhelmed with trying to deal with malicious activity in your environment. So poor prevention is the first one. If you have poor prevention, then you have the second area of security, which is basically what I call the human area of security. This is where automation can't solve the problem, now people resources have to solve the problem. And the challenge in this particular area is especially if you have poor prevention, you have a flood of alerts that are going into consoles and ticketing systems and things like that just go unchecked because of the sheer volume. It's like the check engine light if you have an old car, right? If you have an old car and that check engine light is on all the time and you've taken it to the shop, they can't fix it. It's just on the dash. And what do? We just ignore it. That's the challenge in this area, is your people resources become numb to the sheer number of alerts, and they become numb to it. And so things just get left unchecked. Really critical challenge to deal with in an organization. And the third area is one that our industry, in the small, medium business, in the MSP community, we just don't do a good job of. And most people do not talk about this, but this is critically important when it comes to securing businesses. Now, the difference between, this is one area of difference between, let's say, the Fortune 50, large financial institutions, government agencies. They spend time trying to harden their environment against attack to make the other two areas, the prevention area and the detection and response area, that much more efficient. They focus in this area. Small, medium businesses, MSPs, we do not focus in this area. And that's a critical challenge that you need to address in some way, shape, or form, is how do I harden my environment to make it more difficult for criminal organizations to get access to my customer's environment? And the challenge in this area is that there's a lack of tools associated with this. And so we don't have good visibility in the risks associated with our businesses. And then how do we actually remediate those risks? And so this is a challenge. I speak all over the world. It is a global challenge. I'm going to talk about some ways that you can address this area. And I liken this to a very simple picture in your mind. I want you to think about the last time you went to a store in your car, and the first thing you do when you drive into the parking lot after parking and after getting out of your vehicle is you harden your vehicle. You close the doors, you make sure the windows are rolled up, and you lock your doors. Why do we do that? Because we are hardening our vehicle. Okay, nowhere, I have never gone into a parking lot anywhere in my entire life and seen a bunch of car doors open, windows open, the trunks open. Why? Because we just do this naturally. The challenge is, from a business perspective, we do not do this digitally. And that is something that, if you take anything away from this morning's presentation, or if you're on in the afternoon, think about ways that you can help harden your customers' environments against cyber attack. I'm gonna show you how BitDefender does this, but whether you use BitDefender or not, think about ways to not only analyze the risk in your environment, but also harden it. So those are the three challenges that you have to address from a good security practitioner perspective. And it's regardless of what your industry, regardless of how big your business is or how small your business is, you need to do these three things. So let's talk about the requirements of a good security architecture based upon those three challenges. First, in the prevention layer, efficacy matters. In other words, you need lots of security controls that are very effective and able to block automatically a threat, whether it's coming across the network, whether it's coming across the internet, whether it's coming in via a USB device, a Bluetooth device, whether it's a script, whatever the threat is, you need to be able to identify it automatically and respond to it automatically at a very high efficacy level. What that does is that reduces the number of incidents that your people resources have to respond to. It reduces the risk associated with the organization, and automatic security controls are the fastest response mechanisms that we have, so that your people resources, which are really slow in relation to automatic, it just makes them way more efficient because they don't have to deal with a lot of incidents. So anything that passes through that prevention layer, you need detection and response capability. These are people resources to be able to identify those threats that have breached the prevention layer and be able to respond. Now, what do those resources need? What do people need to be able to respond to those events? Number one, they need great visibility. In other words, be able to very quickly determine whether something is malicious or benign really quickly, and then be able to respond to those events and do that across my customer's environment, whether it is coming across email, whether it's coming across maybe an identity has been compromised and is being used to either move laterally, obfuscate itself, or actually initiate malicious behavior in my environment. I need to be able to identify those very quickly, respond to them, and deal with that threat. So you need great visibility across your environment, and then the ability to respond to those events. And finally, you need the ability to analyze risk in your customer's environment, be able to harden those risks. Now, you can't cover every single risk that's in an environment. That's absolutely impossible. But how do you identify, or wouldn't it be nice to be able to identify the high-level risks in my customer environment, and then systematically over a period of 9 to 12 months, however long it takes, be able to systematically work through various holes in my security architecture, identify them, and remediate those risks to really close the doors to my business, roll up the windows, and lock the doors. That's what we're talking about. So let's kind of dive in, and then we'll open it up for questions and things like that. So let's talk about the prevention layer, and specifically what BitDefender does in this area. When you think about BitDefender has about 35 to 37 different areas of security controls that we can implement in your customer's environment. So I like it. I'm a big sports guy. I love sports, and especially I love team sports. When you think about this area of security, and I want you to think about, if you're a sports guy or lady like me, I want you to think about your favorite team sport. My daughter plays lacrosse, so she's a lacrosse goalie. And so I just get so much joy watching her playing sports. But I want you to think about this when defensive side of that sports team. Imagine, if you will, let's say that you're a soccer team or whatever, and you can put 9 people on the defensive side of the ball to be able to defend that goal against attack. What if I told you that if you were a manager and you can actually make this happen, what if I told you instead of 9, you can have 35 to 37 defenders on the field? The defense might improve just by not changing your strategy at all, just because you have more people on the field. That's the same thing is true in security, especially in this area. The more security controls that you can apply that can work in conjunction with each other, the better your security is going to be. And this is where BitDefender shines in the industry. Most products in this space have about 17, maybe 18 security controls that you can apply to defend your environment. BitDefender's got over 30 of them. So we just have more players on the field. I'm going to highlight 2 of these security controls for you just to give you an example. So the first one is what we call in BitDefender, it's called Hyper Detect. Remember I talked about the fact that BitDefender was in the AI machine learning. We actually introduced this, believe it or not, in 2008. So that is 15 years ago, BitDefender introduced machine learning into our production environment, okay? So it wasn't in test, it wasn't in development, it was actually in our production environment. Well, BitDefender's come a long way in 15 years, and what we've noticed is the challenge with machine learning and AI is when you become more aggressive, in other words, to be able to stop more stuff, you get a lot of false positives. So what BitDefender learned early on is they said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. How to be aggressive without a huge ton of false positives. Well, what they did was they started to slice and dice the malicious activity in a business into various threat vectors. And you see those on your screen. So whether it's targeted based attacks, so if you're in the financial or you're a law firm or you're in the medical industry, you have to deal with targeted attacks. Manufacturers, maybe a little bit. And so what they did was they slice and diced up the various threat vectors and then give you the ability to tune up the aggressiveness per that threat vector. And then based upon that, also tell BitDefender how you want us to respond to that threat, whether you want us to just report on it or whether you want us to block something or move something to quarantine. You can spell out in this particular area, I want you to do X action. And what it allows you to do is get maximum security in the areas that you're concerned about. Okay, so most businesses are really concerned about ransomware. That's great. Become very aggressive with ransomware. But the rest of the areas are kind of optional for most businesses, so leave those at normal. So you say to BitDefender, I want you to detect and respond to anything that remotely looks like ransomware, and the rest I want to just be in a normal type state, okay? So that's just one area. Another security control that we have built in is sandboxing. This allows us to automatically upload and detonate objects away from your customer environment. And these objects are becoming more and more sophisticated. So there are time-based type scripts that maybe wait for a period of time, or there may be multiple layers to a particular object. So what this allows BitDefender to do is take that unknown object, upload it into the BitDefender cloud, detonate it away from your customer environment, and now it becomes known. And now BitDefender can actually react appropriately because we've taken the unknown out of that potentially risky object, and we can do that on an automated basis. So that's just 2 of 30 plus other security controls that we have built in. We have HIDs and HIPs built in, so we analyze network traffic, including RDP traffic. So if you're using an RMM, it's probably using RDP to communicate with your endpoints. BitDefender protects against the compromise of that RMM platform, and we become known in the industry to be the safest defense against that type of attack, because over the last couple of years, a lot of the RMM platforms have actually been compromised and been used to spread malicious activity in the customer base. And BitDefender customers have been protected against all of those threats because we have the ability to scan that network traffic. So that's just the area of prevention. Let's talk about the human area of security that we call detection and response. And I'm going to talk about endpoints. I'm going to talk about email. I'm going to talk about network. We'll talk about identity. What does BitDefender do in this space? Well, if you're familiar with AI like ChatGPT and other types of websites, BitDefender has that type of capability built into our platform. So we have an AI engine that will take correlated activity that is in your customer's environment, whether it's from the endpoint, the network, identity, email, etc., or cloud-based platforms. We will synthesize that data, and then we will give you in plain English what is happening in your customer's environment. Because remember, this area is for people resources. And most businesses do not have highly trained, very specialized security personnel. So you need a capability like this. This is built into BitDefender, and we will tell you exactly what is happening in your customer environment across all of those threat vectors. And then notice over on the right, we give you guided response actions that BitDefender recommends to take. So if I click on view details over on the right, BitDefender will show you the users that we need to block and why, and the various endpoints that we need to isolate and why. And when we drill into these things, we'll also give you a great picture. So you'll be able to see the story or the timeline of the event across those various threat vectors. And you can drill into each of these so that, again, very quickly, what you need in this type of tool set is this activity malicious or benign? Be able to make that determination very quickly, and then be able to stop that particular threat by clicking a button, okay? So that is what BitDefender has built into our platform to help humans identify the threat, or maybe it's benign, and then be able to make that determination and have a responsive action for that determination. If I drill into any of those objects, I basically drill into that particular object, and then based upon in-context mappings, I can take different actions. So if I'm on the endpoint and I'm looking at the endpoint, I can isolate that endpoint on the network. I can open up a console if I need to do that. Let's say that I need to run forensics. That is built into BitDefender. You can click a button and run forensics on that particular object as well. If it's benign, I can click on an object, maybe it's an IP address or a website or a script or whatever the object is, and I can actually whitelist it right from the console. So that is just some of the capabilities built into BitDefender. We do pre and post compromise forensics, so you'll be able to see how did the attack start, how did it spread, how did it stop, or if it's ongoing, about that. So that's just the detection and response area. So again, this is for humans. And what's really interesting about this, especially as I travel the globe, this has become kind of a hot topic for especially small, medium businesses. And the industry seems to be focused in the wrong area, in my opinion, as a security practitioner here. What the industry focus on, and maybe you can relate to this, when you're looking for a tool set in the EDR, XDR area, you're looking for, and what vendors tout a lot is they tout their detection rate. In other words, what percentage of stuff can I detect as a tool? And that is really important. But what's interesting about this is, if you dig a little deeper, what's really important from a human perspective, because remember, humans are using this, what's really important is, what is that detection? And we assume that a detection means we know exactly what that object is. Well, in reality, that is not the case, okay? And one of the things I want you to notice about BitDefender and where we kind of separate ourselves from the industry in this area is BitDefender has what's called analytic insights, okay? And on your screen, if you notice, the percentage of analytic insights for BitDefender is 96%. Every time we go through a test, it's in the high 90s. 94, 97, 96, 90 this, 90 that. Most products in this space, okay, have around 50%. Okay, now why is that important? Okay, I want you to think about the fact that you are a human operator and you're using this tool to respond to an event. And I've traveled trying to explain this, what this means from an impact perspective. And then I ran across a photo, or actually two photos, that explain what the difference is between a detection and an analytic insight. Now, imagine if you're an operator and a tool gives you a detection, okay? This is what it looks like, okay? So you're trying to protect your customers' environments, and a tool basically says, hey, I have a detection. What is that? It's basically a gray dot in the field. It's something that looks like this. Do you know what that is? No. But if you're a highly trained, skilled security analyst who has years of experience, and you've got a bunch of other security analysts that are with you, and you've got a lot of data that's pouring in, you might be able to determine what that is from that detection, okay? What if you can get an analytic insight on that same object? An analytic insight as a picture looks like this. That's what an analytic insight is. And what we separate ourselves in the industry for is for 96% of the pictures on the left, we give you the picture on the right. So your human resources can very quickly determine, oh, that's a tiger. It doesn't look pretty malicious right now. It kind of looks tired and sleepy, not very hungry. I might be able to walk by that tree. Maybe in another context, that actually might be malicious and it might be hungry, and I might have to run faster than the person next to me, okay? That is what an analytic insight is. So whether you use BitDefender or not, I would recommend, when you're looking at EDR solutions for your business and your customers' businesses, you ask the vendor, what are your analytic insights and how do you rate there, as opposed to just focusing on detections, okay? Now let's talk about risk. So this is the third area of your security architecture, and how does BitDefender address security hardening and analyzing risks? And the challenge in this particular area, like I said, is most businesses digitally are like walking into a parking lot, looking at the cars, and all the cars' doors are wide open, the windows are rolled down, and the trunks are open, okay? That is how they look digitally. So the easiest way that you can shore up that and remediate those risks is to be able to identify those open doors, be able to identify the windows that are rolled down, et cetera, and you can block most forms of ransomware by just doing this, okay? It's basic blocking and tackling when it comes to security. So how does BitDefender help you with this? We have a risk analytics engine that is built into our platform. It comes with a deployment, and what it does is it runs a risk scan in 1,800 different areas, from system misconfiguration, networking configuration, patching, even user-based risks. So I was on with a customer this morning before this call, and we were looking at this. They were a school, and we were looking at various risks associated with the students. And one of the things that it shows you is risky behavior when it comes to browsing. And so they could identify which students had risky browsing behavior. In other words, they're going to websites that pose harm to the business. That is a really interesting insight, especially if you offer some training services. You can start to target high-risk users that maybe are using the same password on multiple websites. Huge security risk. We don't want their Facebook password and their Instagram password the same as your company password. That's just bad security. So be able to identify those users, be able to send them a training and say, hey, change passwords, have different passwords so that criminals can't just compromise a platform and then be able to log into your business with a legitimate password. Okay, that's how they stay obfuscated for months and months and months, is because they've compromised credentials, they've used those credentials, and now they're one of your users, but they don't work for the company. That is a huge risk. BitDefender helps identify those risks, and also we help you to remediate those risks. Not only do we show you high, medium, and low base risks, we tell you, change this group policy. This user is doing X. Patch these applications because there's 400 CVEs associated with that particular version of that application. So it just helps you to identify risk, classify risk, and then help you to systematically remediate risk that is just built into BitDefender. So let's talk about why all this matters, and then we'll close up. Every single attack that comes to your customer follows the same basic roadmap, okay? And there are subsets to these, but basically, this is how it happens. There's a first contact. In other words, the criminal or the malicious activity gets into your environment through whatever threat vector. Then something is executed in the environment. And usually what happens after that is the activity tries to hide, it moves laterally. We call that establishing presence. If it's a criminal organization, they're trying to obfuscate themselves, in other words, trying to hide. And then there's some sort of malicious activity, okay? Now, what's really important about this is that you need to have a breadth of security controls across these various threat vectors to be able to prevent this type of attack. And that's what BitDefender has built into our product. So this is the prevention layer and where it lives. BitDefender's got about 35 to 37 different security controls that go across these different threat vectors. And then we help you to harden your environment against first contact. So we help you to identify risk and be able to close those doors, roll up the windows, lock the doors to your businesses. And then if all of that fails, we have the ability and we enable your users, your security operators, to be able to detect and respond to those various threats. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to do the detection and response area, you can actually outsource that to BitDefender. BitDefender has a managed service that will that is 24/7 by 365, stacked with folks from the US military, government agencies. We hire those folks. They are based in San Antonio, Texas. So you can actually outsource the detection and response capability to BitDefender. You can automatically onboard your customers onto this service. And then you tell us what responsive actions you want us to take. We give you a list of them and you can turn them on or off. It's really simple to do. And then you tell us who you want us to contact if we ever respond to a threat on your behalf. So we'll respond to that threat, we'll mitigate that risk for you, and then who do you want us to call? That is all built into our platform. We call this platform Gravity Zone. It is widely deployed across managed service providers. It's a single agent, single SaaS platform that communicates with those agents. All of our technologies that I've talked about are built into that single agent You don't have to manage the agent. It auto updates itself, auto upgrades itself. And it's very, very simple to manage. We integrate with most RMMs on the platform or on the planet. If you're using one of them, they're all great partners of ours because this is a completely API-driven application. So it's very, very simple to integrate with. It's got tons of capabilities, and it's purposely designed for smaller businesses. It's designed for scale. It's multi-tenant in its architecture. Really, really great product. I want to thank you so much for your attention. That's all I have. Any questions out there from anybody that I can help answer?
Yeah, I've got a number of questions on here, Mike.
Great.
Let's see. One thing I do want to note, and I had gotten that on here. I don't know if you want to talk about it, or I posted it up here as well. You guys have a special deal going on here. BitDefender does. If you book a demo, a detailed one-on-one demo. So if you book a demo, and I posted this up in the chat just a short bit ago, book a demo with BitDefender by tomorrow. So if you're watching this live, Friday, June 16th, and you email ipsm@bitdefender.com, and the first 25 people to complete a demo are going to get a $50 Shell gas card.
Oh, cool. So, okay, that's great. Well, we all need gas now, and it's really expensive. So that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So do that. I saw Dave already said he's got it done.
Sweet.
There with that. And so make sure if this was interesting to you, you want to see it a little bit more in detail, really look under the hood on all of this, then go ahead and email ipsm@bitdefender.com. If you're watching this on the recording, I'm sure you can still email to that same email address. You can always see if one of the gift cards is still available if you're maybe just watching it tomorrow or so. All right, I got some questions here for you.
Okay.
So first one, what is the current best way to avoid ransomware?
Okay. So I kind of talk about some of these principles. I would say the easiest way to avoid ransomware, number one, is to start thinking about hardening your environment. Small, medium businesses just don't do a good job of this. And most ransomware can be prevented by simple operational changes in the configuration of your customers' environments. I'll give you a great example of this. Built into every Windows machine, there is an anonymous guest account. Okay. In other words, we spend all this time talking about and dealing with user identities and making sure we rotate passwords and doing all this stuff. Guess what? On every Windows machine in your customers' environments, there is an account that is legitimate that bypasses all of your firewalls, network security controls, and everything, because it's a legitimate account. And with that account, it has no password, okay? It's called an insecure guest account or anonymous guest account. It's basically an account in Windows that is built in, that has no password. And guess the easiest way to spread malicious activity in your environment is to use that account. It has rights. It has actually a lot of rights in your environment, and it can be used to spread ransomware just throughout your customer base. And it's in every single Windows system. So locate that account, get rid of that account. You do not need that account. And that's just one simple way that you can avoid it. The second way for ransomware is via email and your users. So make sure that you have really good email security platform, whether that's Microsoft, Proofpoint, BitDefender. There's lots of different ways or lots of different vendors that deal with email security. Definitely want to have a good email security platform. So those two things, are two really huge principles to defend against ransomware in your environment. And then, like I talked about, have good automated security controls. I cannot tell you, as I travel around, some of the prevention layers that I see out there, the idea that I don't get any alerts, so that's a good thing, is not a good thing. It just means that that prevention layer is not doing much and is not going to do much against ransomware, and you're basically a sitting duck, and so are your customers. So those are the three areas that I would kind of focus on for ransomware.
I mean,
Sorry,
one
that was
way
a
on that,
long-winded answer. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say one way on that too, probably not so practical is if you're just living in a cave and not connected to the internet. You're
Right. I mean, you can, what's interesting about that, it's funny. I mean, it's probably not a funny story, but very large organization in the US I was dealing with a long time ago had what's called an air gap system, which basically means it's not connected to any outside entity. Well, at the time, I was working with them on some software to be able to just attest to the fact that that was the case. They had to demonstrate that. So they deployed this software in that environment, and guess what? That environment was not air gapped. There were IP addresses and ports and applications that quote air gap system was talking to that should not have been talking to it. And so you just don't know. It's I mean, and really it's not feasible nowadays. I mean, business runs on the internet now. If you're not on the internet, it's really, really difficult to do business. So anyway.
Yeah, definitely agreed on that. Gene was asking here, if an attack is successful, what's the best tech available to hide or shield critical data from being seen by a ransomware attacker? Are any foolproof from what you've seen, Mike?
Yeah, good question. So that gets to, again, I come from operational background. So being very good at, to be able to secure your data, the easiest way operationally to do that is because all this tool set is responding to various events. So it's detecting something and then responding. If you want to lock your data down, access control is the key. It's a pain in the rear to be able to implement, but being able to identify what users should have access to it, to that data, and then really limit the access. What we do is we get lazy as organizations, and like people move within organizations and system accounts are just opened up because it's the easy way to do stuff. You know, I mean, I've run into situations, especially in our market, where somebody leaves the company and they still have access to all the company resources because they haven't been, their user account hasn't been disabled. And like 3 months later, they can still have access to various applications within the company. That's not having good access control. So the way you solve that problem is think about the challenge of, and addressing the challenge of identifying who should have access to that data, and then restricting the access to that data to only those users. And if you do that and you do that well, that's the secret sauce to protecting your data ultimately.
So Mike, would you say, or would you classify it, and I think you may have already answered this as part of it, but I just want to make sure that this individual got the answer to it.
Yeah.
Do you classify BitDefender as an EDR? Is it more than that? Is it a piece of that? Kind of where?
Oh, good question. Yeah.
That classification?
Great question. BitDefender is in the detection and response business. We are EDR. We are XDR. So if you've heard that term, And we are managed detection and response. So we are EDR, XDR, and MDR if you're looking for that type of tool set. And especially in the area of MDR and XDR, our architecture is better than everyone else. The way we implement those, because I've sold those platforms in the past. And when I saw what BitDefender does, remember, we're an engineering company. So we look to automate stuff. So like, for example, in XDR, we do it the right way. In other words, we register with Azure AD as a trusted application, which then gives us access to that data. So we can, most tools in this space just send you alerts. Hey, this email's been compromised. And you can't respond to it because you have no rights to do that. BitDefender takes the better approach, which says, if I get a detection, I better be able to respond to that. So you can literally kill an email with the click of a button right out of Office 365. So it's that type of capability, or you could disable a user, you could change their credentials. So not only are we detection in the XDR space, but we're also response, which is pretty unusual to do that. And we do that without having to deploy an agent or anything. It's just built into our platform.
Very, very cool.
So yeah, really cool technology.
Yeah, a couple questions specific to the technology here. Is BitDefender's SIM compatible with all solutions?
Oh, good question. Well, I didn't talk about SIM integration. We do integrate with SIMs. That's a security information and event manager. So we do integrate with them. And we've got some that are built into our platform. So you can just click a button if you have that particular platform, or we could do any HTTPS log collector. We can integrate it with JSON. There's various ways that we can integrate with various SIM devices. It's built right into our policy. And yeah, we do have that. Good question.
Yeah, so you talked about the response side of things. Will it respond to malicious DNS traffic?
Okay, good question. So we have, it's interesting. So we have, unbeknownst to a lot of the industry, we have filtering built in. So built into our agent, we have like URL category filtering. We can scan HTTP as well as HTTPS traffic. So you can put security controls, believe it or not, without any network security controls just by using BitDefender. And where this really came into play, it was interesting back early COVID, right? So remember back in the COVID days where everybody went home. Well, you had a choice. If you were if you were a managed service provider, you had a choice. You either had to set up a bunch of VPNs and route everybody back through the company to get out to the internet from home, or you could, if you had BitDefender, and this is what I spent the first like month or two on various calls, is literally just enabling content filtering through BitDefender, and then it didn't matter what network you connected to. So we do have, we don't do it at the network layer, we do it at the host layer. So regardless of the network that you connect to, you can have security controls from a URL category filtering. We can block or allow any URL address globally. And so that's built into our engine. Great question.
Great. There was one follow-up question on the one about if an attack is successful, what's the best tech? How does encryption add to this? Or BitDefender offers this also?
We do. So we integrate natively with both BitLocker and FileVault, depending on if you're on a Windows or Mac machine. And basically what we do is we help with the management of that device encryption. So the challenge with implementing either BitLocker or FileVault is managing the encryption keys. It's just a pain. And so most partners just don't want to deal with it. Well, if you have a way to manage those keys so that you can reset passwords, and it's, you don't have to manage it by spreadsheet. We do have an encryption management capability within Gravity Zone where we'll enforce the encryption on the device. That device will encrypt itself either with File Vault or BitLocker. And then the key gets stored in the Gravity Zone platform, and so that we can manage it across your customer base. So yes, we do have encryption. Great.
So I did want to remind everyone here, and I've got an update because I know someone asked about this. I have an autoresponder on it. So if you enjoyed what Mike was talking about today, interested in BitDefender, I encourage you, book a demo. All you have to do is to book a demo is to email ipsm@bitdefender.com. Now you probably will get a autoresponder that it's a group mailbox. One of the individuals on maternity leave, so it's popping back an autoresponder on that. But there's 4 others that are on that are getting a message. They'll make sure that you get covered on that. As a reminder on that, I don't know how many they're at right now, but the first 25 people that not only sign up, but also complete a demo, you're going to get a $50 Shell gasoline gift card. And that is just available in the US. Here for that. I'm sure Mike will take care and get you something if you're in Canada or somewhere else there. He'll
well, and you can, you can also contact one of our, we have distributors all over the globe.
Absolutely.
Ask them about BitDefender, and I'm sure they'll be happy. And if they can't do any demos, or if they have questions or whatever, they can always get myself or anyone else on our team on a call with you. We do that all day, every day. So thanks so much for hosting us, Jeff. This has been great.
This has been great today. And as you and I talked about before the call, of a great introduction here of BitDefender to the MSP success community. First time here on this, and hopefully not the last time. This was a great webinar.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate everybody's time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one, Mike.